wolves know this all across North America. I've only been able to find 2 documented bona fide cases where wolves have killed humans in North America in recent times. There was this one guy, young guy up in Saskatchewan several years ago. There was one woman in Alaska that apparently was killed by wolves. It almost never happens. They just know that people are dangerous. They've been persecuted. I mean, there were bounties on wolves. I think it's in their DNA now. You know? All wild animals. Grizzly bears. They don't want anything to do with people 99.9% of the time.
It's interesting you saying that. Grizzly bears, where they're hunted, don't want anything to do with people.
Right.
They're having a real problem with grizzly bears in places like Montana, where they don't hunt them,
right,
where they don't have any fear. Many, many generations of no fear of human beings, and you're getting a lot of maulings because of that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be crazy about walking out in a national park where you're not allowed to bring a gun.
Yeah. Well, Montana in particular, they have a lot.
But
so,
in this case, the wolf wanted out of there. It walked up the other side of the ravine. I watched it. It was about 300-400 yards from me. When he got up to the top of the ridge, he stopped way, way up high above. I remember looking at him through binoculars, or maybe it was the scope of my rifle. I just remember him giving a yawn. He laid down on the ground when he knew he was safe way up there, and he just gave a yawn, and I could see his tongue. It was just like a dog. I could see him give this yawn like he had just climbed up this big mountain in about 10 minutes, you know. So I just walked around the cliff, went down in there, got that caribou. I actually made a backpack out of his rib cage to carry it home.
Wow.
And it was cold. It was like 25 below. That was pretty brutal getting that thing, you know, back to the camp from up on the mountain there.
How heavy was it?
I don't know. A lot of things I don't weigh, but I'd say a caribou like that probably weighs about 250 pounds, something like that. You know, I obviously don't take all of that weight at one time with me. I carry as much as I can.
Did you have a backpack like a pack frame?
I had a frame, and I just stuffed everything in the... I remember it was so cold, and I was so tired up there running up this mountain in the winter. And it's dark. It's dark up there all the time. There's no sun in the winter. I just remember getting the head off that thing, throwing the legs and stuff in the rib cage and throwing it onto that frame I had. And it was all inside of the big rib cage. Still had the skin on it and everything.
Was the wolf watching the whole time?
He was up on top of the mountain. I wasn't paying close attention to him after that. I don't know how long he hung out up there.
I would think that you would want to keep an eye on that fucker. He knows you're stealing his food.
I've done this other times. Wolves, I spent a lot of times around the wolves. This has been a lot of time. When the snow conditions are just right, you can actually keep up with wolves, believe it or not. I've stayed with wolves all day long, going 8 or 10 miles. When the snow is deep enough, they start walking single file, and every wolf in the pack steps in exactly the same track. And their stride, when they slow down to a walk like that, is just right for me. I can step right in their tracks. I don't even need snowshoes.
Wow.
If there's less snow, you can't keep up with the wolf. You know, their normal gait, they're trotting. You can't even come close to that speed. But when the snow gets deep and they get single file, if you're in good shape, you can jog behind wolves all day long. And I followed wolves. I followed a pack of 12 wolves one time, 8 or 10 miles. They were hunting caribou right in front of me. There was another time I remember taking caribou meat away from a pack of wolves, which I didn't even see. They had killed the caribou, but, you know, there's a lot of brush and different stuff around. I discovered it because ravens flew up off it. I went over there, and judging by the tracks, there were half a dozen wolves around. And I took that caribou that time, brought it home and ate it. But I had a lot of interactions over the years with the wolves, and I never had wolves act aggressive to me. I've had them act curious. I've had them act scared. I've had them act indifferent. I never had wolves act aggressive to me until that time, January 2012, when a pack of 20 wolves literally took after me out on the lake. And I did shoot 3 of those wolves.
And what was that about? Why do you think they were taking after you?
It was a very unusual situation. First of all, there were 20 wolves in one place. That's unheard of up there. That's totally unheard of. The largest pack of wolves I've ever heard a count of that far north was 17 wolves, and that was back in the 1970s. And usually there's 5, 6 wolves in a pack up there. It's a real hungry country. It's hard for them to feed themselves if the pack gets bigger than that. They have to split up and go somewhere new. But I don't know what happened that year. I don't know if 2 packs combined. I don't know if the pack just grew to that size, but it was unheard of. Anyway, I'm up on a mountain. I look down at the lake. It's in January. It's just twilight in the middle of the day. I see this big brown spot on the ice. I'm like, what the hell's that? It's like out in front of my cabin about 500 yards, this big brown spot. First, I thought it was water overflow that comes up through the ice sometimes when you get a crack. And I get out the binoculars, I'm looking, and holy cow, that's a giant pack of wolves that just took something down on the lake. I can see like one of them's breaking off, and then coming back over, and I realized what's going on. There was very little snow that year. Even though it was January, it had been cold since September, but very little precipitation. There was only about maybe 4 or 5 inches of snow, so I could literally run down the mountain. I was down at the lake within 20 minutes. And I went right to my cabin. I got my camera. I got my tripod. I'm like, this is phenomenal. I got to document this. And I start walking across the lake out to where they are to get pictures of this. So I get about 350 yards from these wolves. I still don't know what the animal is that they got there. And, I can hear them. You can hear bones breaking and stuff. The wolves, it's just amazing. Yeah. And I start taking pictures, and I run out of batteries. I'm like, oh, shit, I ran out of batteries. So I got to go back to the cabin. That's like 150 yards behind me, And I turn around. I start walking back to the cabin. When I get about 30 yards or so from the cabin, I look back over my shoulder, and the whole goddamn pack of wolves is racing across the lake straight toward me. I'd never seen anything like it. I sprinted like Jesse Owens through the door of that cabin. I was only 30 yards from it. I turn and I look back out the window, and these wolves came right up into my yard. They were 50 yards from the front door, 20 wolves.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like, this is unheard of. Wolves are usually hightailing it out of there when they see people. So, I get my new batteries. I get the camera set back up. I go back out. By the time I get back out in the yard, they're back over at this thing they've killed like 500 yards away. And I want to get more pictures of this. I got my rifle too, of course. So I start heading back over. When I get about 350 yards from them, I start taking more pictures. I got a great picture. You could pull it up maybe.
Yeah, let me see that.
It's in the notes section on my Facebook page. There's a story, an unusual occurrence with the wolves. Anyway, they're all eating, and I start taking pictures again. And after I take some pictures, first one, then two, then three, the wolves, they're like, I can see they stop eating and they're looking at me. They're like 350 yards away, but I can just see that they notice that I'm back out there on the lake, and they're sizing me up kind of. And then I see some of them are just really slowly moving toward me, like walking a few steps and stopping. And I'm thinking, yeah, I got my rifle and everything, but there's a lot of wolves there. How do I know they're going to stop when I start shooting? So I decided maybe it's best to just make a slow retreat. And I started backing up and walking back toward the cabin. And the wolves, it looked like they were slowly walking towards me as I'm walking toward the cabin. When I got about, if I remember right, it was 100 yards from the cabin, those wolves started galloping. All 20 wolves started galloping towards me.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, wow, look at this picture.
Yeah, those wolves right there. They start galloping towards me, and I dropped that tripod right there where I was, and I was 100 yards from the cabin. They were 400 yards from me, and I ran as fast as I could for the cabin. Because I thought, hey, if I start shooting, what if they don't stop? It's 20 wolves there. I got 4 or 5 rounds of, if I had one in the chamber, I had 5 rounds of ammunition there. I ran for the cabin. I go in the door, and just like the time before, they're right there in my front yard. I look out, and they're 50 yards away. They're all milling around, 20 wolves. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is amazing. I've never seen anything like this. But I'm safe and sound in the cabin. So I just collect my thoughts. I'm like, man, it's time to teach these wolves a lesson. If I let those wolves leave now, they're going to think I'm just food. I run away when they see me.
Right.
I could be out there in the night, in the dark, not even know wolves are around, and get ambushed by them or something. So I had to shoot some of those wolves. So I loaded up the gun, made sure everything was perfectly right, put some extra ammunition in my pocket, checked everything out. Okay, I'm set to go out there with this gun and talk to these wolves about this situation. And I go back out, and they were back at the moose. It turned out to be a moose they'd killed. They were back over there at the kill. So I thought, well, it'd be a lot safer if I shot from close to the cabin, rather than go out there on the open ice. So I'll just see if I can lure them back over here. And I started running back and forth right in front of my cabin on the ice just to get their attention. And sure enough, it worked. That whole pack of 20 wolves started racing across that lake at a full gallop straight toward me. I couldn't believe it. I was right in front of my cabin. I'd just run back and forth like 50 yards out to my little water hole in the ice and back to the cabin a few times, and they just started running right at me. So I sat right down there on the bank, on the shore, right, 15 feet in front of my porch, and started shooting. I think if I remember right, the first one I hit was 264 yards. I measured it all off the next day. It was kind of interesting just checking out the tracks and seeing what had happened. I hit 3 of them. Yeah.
What happened when one got hit?
They stopped at the closest tracks to me were about 40 yards. When it was happening,
Close.
It was happening so fast. I was just sitting down, braced, shooting. I remember reloading after I shot 5 times. It all happened so fast. But then the next day when I had time, I went out there and looked at all the tracks and measured everything and sized up the situation, figured out where I'd hit different wolves and stuff. And I wrote that all down. That's what I was mentioning in the notes section there on my Facebook page, that story, because I wanted, when it was fresh in my mind, to really have the details, because I knew right then that something happened to me that doesn't really happen to people. I mean, have a pack of wolves come after you is a very unusual occurrence. You could read all over the place that wolves don't attack humans. I've read that many times.
But they have.
They have, at least
particularly historically.
Historically,
the whole Little Red Riding Hood. That's all because they were trying to warn children about wolves.
Yeah.
Now, when you found these wolves, and you when you started shooting and you hit one, did the other ones freak out? Did they realize what's going on?
They started putting on the brakes, but like I said, the first wolf I hit was over 250 yards. I think it was 264 yards, something like that, from me, and some of the tracks came about 40 to 50 yards from me before they had stopped. They were doing U-turns, you could see, in front of me. They were all just milling around. When I was reloading, I just remember seeing all these wolves milling around in front of me, like running around in circles, and I was like, holy cow, and I'm reloading. And I remember shooting one more time as they were headed away, but they all took off. They headed into the woods, and one of the wolves that I had hit was paraplegic, but he was still going on 2 legs. So I ran in.
Him.
Yeah, I ran in the cab. The other 2 had just dropped immediately. One of them was hit right in the head. But I ran in the cabin, grabbed my 22 because I didn't want to put a big 30-06 hole in this wolf that was paraplegic. And I chased him down, caught up with him, shot him with 22. Then I could hear all the other wolves howling and howling. They're like, probably almost half a mile away from me by then. They were up in the woods on the other side of the lake, and I just ran over to that, what they had killed. And this was the first time I saw it. It was a 1.5-year-old bull moose. And it was still all there. The legs were still on it. I got pictures of it and stuff. They had just started eating it not long before I started photographing.
Are the pictures on your Facebook page?
Not of that moose. They put those on LBZ, I think.
What's LBZ?
Life Below Zero.
Oh.
When they showed that story, that was way back. That was like 6 years ago. That was one of my first stories. That's a different moose. I got charged by one out there one time.
So when you find the wolves that you did shoot, and you shot and killed 3 of them,
yeah,
do you eat them?
I ate some of those just because I was low on food.